Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? This is Ronnie K. Tommy A. on my right, and we got a special guest today with us, and we'll introduce him in a moment. But we're broadcasting live from FDIC, and we are so happy to be back here in Indianapolis at FDIC. You have no idea. I'm actually seeing people in three-dimensional now. They like it's a whole body. You know, it's not just a flat screen. I'm so happy to see three-dimensional people in my life. But we're here and we're live from FDIC, like I said, and we're just glad to be back. Tommy.
Oh, and it's like old home week. I've seen a ton of people I haven't seen until pre-pandemic,
Yeah,
and
2 years, man. Yep.
it's good to be home.
Yeah, absolutely. So he doesn't have to sit here and keep looking at me like, when are you going to introduce me? I'll do it now. On my left, and your right probably, is this is Jerry Tracy. Jerry's a longtime friend, but moreover, he's a retired battalion commander from the FDNY. He had 31 years in the fire department in New York City, responsible for a couple of major projects, wind-driven fires in high-rise buildings. And what was the other one? Remind me.
Well, smoke management and control.
Smoke management and smoke control, which kind of it dovetails into everything that we kind of talk about on our show. Normally, we get into health, safety, injury, line of duty prevention, all that other stuff. So, Jerry, why don't you?
Well, thank you for this privilege.
Yeah.
Seriously.
We're glad to have you here. So, want to talk a little bit about maybe if you want to talk about the projects, how they fit into health and safety, and then we'll ask you some questions in the end. All right?
Well, let's just talk about firefighter safety.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, there was a time that people would firefighter safety.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Right.
To say, as you mature in life, you know, when I became a chief officer, and certainly as I was maturing from firefighter to lieutenant to captain, things like that, the realities are you have to accept the responsibilities of the rank, because there's many officers at many ranks still never made the transition from firefighter to officer. They just still wanted to be one of the boys or whatever. And to say,
It's funny. What somebody
Yeah.
once I heard it here. You hear a lot of stuff here. That's why we come to FDIC. Somebody said a wise guy, not a wise guy, but a wise guy
course.
said, when you get promoted, it's not that you're in charge of people. You're now responsible for people.
Exactly.
And I thought that was it hit it on the head. You're responsible for those people.
Right.
You got to get them home.
And as you mature in life, I don't want to say you become old, but some of the young firefighters coming into the fire service could be your sons, your daughters, things like that. So it becomes even more significant as to now what responsibility do you want to take on? What would you like to share with them? What sort of a message would you like them to understand as to why you have standards about certain things, how they operate and their disciplines and things like that? It's as if they're your sons and daughters. You may hear cliches in social media today from those firefighters that beat their chests and they want to be heroes. Clean cabs don't make grabs. Are you serious?
Did you hear that? I heard that the other day from him. Clean cabs don't make grabs.
What are we talking about? Are we talking about cancer? For that firefighter, if it was a firefighter that made that comment, do you have any fellow firefighters that have died from cancer, from exposure to the contaminants of smoke and things like that, for you to make that comment? I'd like to know that question. I'd like to know that answer.
It's challenging him already. That's what
Seriously?
we want to challenge. You know what? You said, I heard you say it the other day, because I stopped into his class. He did a great workshop the other day with Jack Murphy on battle planning for high-rise buildings. And this came up in your lecture. And he said, if you look at it, if you step back and look at it, and that your daughter's son is now in the fire service, don't you want them protected?
Oh, yeah.
So if you were going to protect your own, why wouldn't you protect your firefighters? You're your own too. And if a clean cab helps, and if deconning after a crappy job, getting that crap off your turnout gear helps, taking your gear off before you ride back to the station, if that helps, then you do it. We were ignorant. We didn't know this was bad for us.
Well, there was a point in my
But now
career.
we have information now,
Point in my career, I stopped taking home my work duty uniform, meaning my pants, my shirt. I stopped bringing it home for my wife to do the laundry, for her to be exposed to those clothes. There was a unit in Brooklyn. I won't even throw out the name, but often enough they were called upon to extinguish fires in what was a dump, a garbage dump. And it would come out, and it wasn't really printed for public information, that there was many spouses at home contracting cancer and dying of cancer. Spouses, you know why? Because they were doing the laundry of their husbands. So, yeah, clean cabs don't make grabs.
I hear you. Tommy and I talk about this all the time. And again, we were just ignorant to the facts, but now that listen, you take this back to smoking. Okay, people smoked from the beginning of the time, and then all of a sudden in the 60s and 70s, the Surgeon General put a warning out, smoking could be bad for you. So then people started to look at that and say, oh, maybe I shouldn't smoke it. So this is the same thing. It's like, we didn't have the knowledge, we didn't know, and whether it's smoking or it's diet or, the way you eat or whatever it is. But there's so much knowledge today. There's so much science to back it up. That's the thing.
Well, I think
Science to back it up.
they're more aware of it. My daughter went through the fire academy here 2 years ago. And the stuff that she was taught on occupational cancer, on firefighter mental health, was stuff that we never heard anything of.
You never heard of that, right, in the past. So I think the current generation of firefighters has a leg up on staying healthy,
right,
or healthier through a 30-year career. When I say career, when you're a volunteer fireman, that's a career. You have two jobs when you're a volunteer. You go to work in the factory, and then you're a firefighter. You got two full-time jobs, So you could still do 30 years or 35 and come out pretty good on the other side. You'll come out better than a lot of guys that we know, because when you have gray hair or no hair, you've been around longer than 20 minutes. So we've seen bad stuff happen to bad people only because bad stuff happened to good people. I said that wrong, didn't I? Bad stuff happened to good people because we didn't know any better. So now that there's some knowledge out there, they should be heeding those warnings and the lessons learned from people from the past.
She had mentioned, and thank you for mentioning the fact that I was involved in some research, one of it being fire dynamics in high-rise buildings and smoke management and control. And the smoke management portion of it was utilizing portable fans to pressurize stairwells in high-rise buildings. Now, to think of the significance of that, and quite frankly, the fire service is still slow to understand the significance of that. And I'll be specific. More people die of smoke than they do of fire.
Right.
And there are many high-rise buildings. There's many buildings, and we're not talking private dwellings or apartment houses of ordinary construction. We're talking about fire-resistant, fire-proof buildings that people in residential buildings where we would like, other than the people in the fire apartment, they can escape if there's a fire in their apartment, get out, close the door. Everybody else in the building should shelter in place. Was that an issue in Grenfell? Absolutely. But there were other issues there. One stairwell in the building, it really wasn't pressurized, things like that. And where I'm coming from is if the fire service shows up, and if we have the facilities and the equipment to pressurize stairwells and keep them smoke-free, if people leave their apartments or have to leave their apartments, or firefighters have to go to the floors above and to the roof, they can do it in a smoke-free atmosphere. It's about firefighters' safety and their health and well-being, not having to, one, go above the fire, have to go on air, and then go up there and go to work with less than a full bottle. All of those things. So that's about smoke management. And whose responsibility is it, Chief, for smoke management in a high-rise building? It's your responsibility. Just thought I'd mention that.
Well, what you're saying is the command officers, we'll call them, okay, need to get out into the district, like the engine companies and ladder companies get out to learn their district. The command officers have to go out and look at those panels and look at the purge panels for smoke and the fire alarm panels and the PA system. One of the things that came to light after the trade center was, there was radio problems, as we all know. And what I've told people since, I said, the discussion now is when you're in a commercial high-rise building, number one, there's a telephone on every desk. Number two, you have a PA system. The chief has a PA system that he could talk to the whole building. So he can call his companies and say, hey, Ladder 5, we can't find you. Where are you? Get on the phone and call this number. And there's a telephone right at the command center, right? I can't hear your radio. You can hear this announcement because they're making it right through the whole building. Just call this extension so I can get your location. So it's about getting a little, not out of the box, but just toying with the box. But the effort has to be made.
Amen.
They have to get out and make that effort, you know, and I know some of this, I wanted to ask you something else. It'll come to
I
me.
was gonna ask you, Chief, as part of the project, was Dan Majorkowski involved in that?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that. And that allows us, one, to mention his name and the fact that Dan Majorkowski, originally a fire protection engineer, research engineer with the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. And now he's with Underwriters Labs. And it would be the FDIC conference that introduced me to Dan Majorkowski in 1996.
Need we
It
say
was
more?
sort of
Need we say more?
serendipity.
Yep.
I met him.
Crossroads of the
I
world.
listened to his message and I approached him to say, I need your help. I need your help to help me convince the New York City Fire Department that we have to change our way of doing business in high-rise buildings. And I'll be specific. I'll tell you exactly what I'm talking about. A department that was more than 100 years old. High-rise buildings, they've had high-rise buildings in New York City since the turn of the century. But if you think about how does a department evolve with its policies of strategies, tactics, and things like that? Well, it's based upon the buildings that they respond to, conduct suppression operations in conjunction with ventilation. And for the most part, they honed their experience and tactics and strategies in buildings of ordinary construction, because fires in high-rise buildings are few and far between to really, let's say, gain experience. So you could say as many departments, New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, the Bostons, the LAs, they took the experience of strategy and tactics from ordinary construction and brought that over to high-rise fireproof construction. And it's not the same.
Doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work.
It's not the same because the flow paths are different. Ordinary construction, there's voids in the walls, there's common cock loss, things like that. In fireproof construction, the flow paths are going to be from the area, origin, the space on fire, to maybe a public corridor, right to the stairwell where we're entering the floor to fight the fire. That's the flow path. And that being said, now experiencing fires, I was fortunate to be promoted and be sent to Midtown Manhattan, Times Square, the theater district, but it's Midtown high-rise areas. And experiencing fires there, if you didn't have water on the fire floor, the heat and gases were venting towards the attack stairwell that you were coming out of. You were launching your attack posture out of a stairwell that the door was chocked open because you have a hose line coming through it. And basically, you were increasing the draft of that stairwell because we were also conducting vertical ventilation as soon as possible, ASAP, just like we would in ordinary construction. It was increasing the draft. If you didn't have water on a fire, it was coming at you like a freight train.
Yep.
But unless you were experiencing the fires, you wouldn't know that.
I think it was Alan Bernasini was the first person I heard actually verbalize it, that if you're going to use residential tactics in a commercial structure, you're setting yourself up for
I had the
disaster.
same thought. You know when he said that?
Yeah.
After Brett Tarver got killed.
Yeah, Southwest.
When
Supermarket
Brett
fire.
Tarver got killed in the Southwest Supermarket fire, he said here at FDIC, God rest his soul, Brunasini said, we pulled up on that supermarket like it was a house fire. He said, we never changed our tactics. We just approached the door, we approached everything else because like a high rise, a fire in a large supermarket, like a wall bounds, unfortunately, but still, how often do you, how many big supermarket fires did you see in your career? Really, you think about it, Jerry, a couple, you know, a couple. So it's one of those anomalies. And our good friend is I saw him walking around before, Gordon Graham.
Yes.
You know, it's one of them, it's a low frequency, high consequence event. And that's what it is. It's a high rise job is a low frequency, doesn't happen very often, but it's a high consequence event. You know, and it's just the nature of the beast. So what do you got to do when you got low frequency, high consequence? You got to concentrate on, you got to do some training. You got to make sure you got it together. It's like we'll take it to the next thing. It's like foam operations. How many fire departments go out and practice foam operations? They don't because and then when that tanker rolls over on Main Street in the middle of town, they're fumbling their way through trying to get foam on it to get it out because it's going to burn the whole downtown area down because they haven't done it in 10 years.
And Foam Ops was also, to get back to Dan Majkowski, that was posed to him to say, could we use foam from the standpipe? But just to jump back a second, Dan Majkowski, in meeting him, it was rather profound for me to find out that he understood firefighters. And I'll tell you why he understood firefighters, because he had done or performed many, more than one, forensic investigations of firefighter line of duties.
Yes.
And to say what he was looking at, not so much the policies, the tactics, procedures, did they follow them? Was that the reason that this event happened? He looked at the fire dynamics. And what I would say, that's rather interesting because now you see NIOSH and or fatal fire investigations now will print and explain the fire dynamics. They never did that before.
No, they were, and the sad portion of the recommendations of that, they weren't that different
Oh,
from
it's
line of duty.
The
death to
same
line of
5
duty. Yeah,
recommendations.
Right.
But if private industry looks at how they do in the marketplace, shouldn't the fire department look at how they do business and look at that with respect to what were the fire dynamics on arrival? We opened up the front door to stretch a line. Did the fire dynamics change? Did we take a window? Did we open the roof? How did the fire dynamics change to say our operation, stretching a line, putting water on the fire, did it work or didn't it work? Should we take a look at it? Should it be changed? Can it be made better? Because it is all about firefighter safety.
oh, yeah. You know, Dan's probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. And I appreciate his passion for what him and Steve Kerber are both doing
Absolutely.
in
Yeah,
modern fire behavior.
Yeah, and it's a good thing they came along because
Thank you.
Jerry, how long, and you had just eons of experience in the city, but how long did we think that we were pushing fire through a room? They proved it wrong. They said, you can't push fire. I don't care what you think. You can't push fire. Will you create steam and push the steam toward the other guys? Probably, but you can't move fire room to room with a hose line.
Let's
And-
clarify what really is happening, and if you don't mind.
Sure.
It's possible that, let's say the window, if we're training a stream, whether it be a straight stream or 30-degree fog, things like that, if that window was a vent,
Okay.
and the water being introduced through that window or that opening is negating that vent
Right.
for whatever reason, maybe with the introduction of air, slight as it may be, that fire is going to find another vent. And that's where the fire is going. And that's what we perceived as pushing fire, because the fire is going to seek another vent.
He wants to
It's
get out.
physics.
Right, it wants to get out, right. And what did Bruni say? What did Brunacini say about physics? Right,
That's,
they're the laws of physics,
physics.
not the suggestions of physics. That's what he
Wow.
said. Think about that.
Yeah.
He talked about building collapses. He says, these aren't the suggestions of physics, they're the laws of physics.
Growing up, the word physics was sort of meant different things. And I heard, once over on the radio, we heard there was a pedestrian hit by a car. It was a Honda Physic. They had to take him to the hospital to have it removed.
On the physics, huh?
I think back to, some of the earlier guys at NIST, and Bud Nelson basically wrote the life safety code. But Bud, we were at a meeting and gave us little floppy disks that had the original FPE tool on
I
it
remember FPE tool,
for fire modeling.
5 1/4 floppy on there,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
So
Did
we're
that in
burning,
college.
we're burning at the New Mexico Fire Academy, and I'm like, I'm still very skeptical about the science. And the guy I was teaching with, I said, let's model the room and see what we come up with.
Interesting.
So we ran the model about 3 different ways and kind of got a feel for where the numbers should be. And then we lit the room on fire. What we didn't calculate in was the 2x2 scuppers at the bottom of the floor that was
Interesting.
drawn air in.
Exactly.
But I think we were off on the flashover equation by about 30 seconds. Jerry, it changed the way I looked at stuff and realized that there's a method to the madness. And
For the audience purposes, for the fact that there was scuppers that was introducing oxygen at a low point, the 30-second deviation, was it earlier than thought?
Yes.
Interesting.
There you go.
Earlier.
And you mentioned before about foam in the standpipe. You said that before. We were putting up, when I was in industry as industrial chief, we were putting up a new building. So for height, it was 100, the roof was 133 feet from the ground. So it's a high rise, but it's a process building. We got 4-inch lines pumping flammable liquids through this whole building into vessels and stuff. So my immediate thought, because I'm a fireman, is we need a towel ladder with a foam system. And we had 4 of them down the block at the refinery. They had 4 towel ladders with foam systems on it. Pretty cool.
Wow,
Yeah,
interesting.
all special made stuff. So the guys are all hopped up. We're getting a towel ladder. They're all excited, right? So I said, all right, the building just got framed. They built the standpipe with it, like what they're supposed to. I went over there after they quit for the day, the construction crew, and I said, we're gonna use the building for some drill, you know, and the foreman said, yeah, okay, just clean up after you're done, no problem. So we had a standard Class A pumper and I had a foam truck because of where we were. We put a foam line into the Siamese for the standpipe, and I sent 3 guys upstairs to the roof where the manifold is. I said, take 2 lines off the manifold, see if we can make foam through the standpipe system. Same foam we had on the ground level, we had up on the roof. So now I know I can pump foam, finished foam solution into that connection. I got hand lines for foam if I get a fire in the building. Now, the next experiment is, will the sprinklers do the same thing? So we go down to the local fire academy it was in Union County, New Jersey, city of Linden. Go down to fire academy. In the Class A burn building, there was a Siamese on the building and a pipe with 3 or 4 sprinkler heads, like in the first floor. And really, then we just put water through it and bring all the probies in and say, this is what sprinklers look like when they're activated, and they can see the water coming out. We bring 4 pans. The pans were like, I don't know, 2x6, about 2-inch lip. We bring 4 of them, put them in the room, and we pour 2 gallons of acetone in each one.
Whoa.
I says, light it off and let it pre-burn for a minute or 2. Let's get it really hot. We put a foam line on that connection, lit it off. Looks like there's a tank farm on fire, needless to
Yeah.
say. All right, start the pump. And we put foam through conventional sprinkler head, just like in this room. And the fire was out in about a minute. Done. So now we know we could put foam in the sprinkler system. We could put foam through the standpipe system. It will work. Documented it, did an article for fire engineering back then on that, and documented the whole thing. So it was a little bit out of the box. The neat part was, for me, for my credibility as an industrial chief, I went back to the vice president. I said, put the checkbook away. We don't need the $1 million. It was back then, it was $1 million. I said, we found a way to put firefighting foam in the building without the use of a piece of apparatus.
3% foam?
3%
So
foam.
we're not talking high X.
Nope.
We're just talking.
Regular universal gold, 3%. But the foam truck, I carry 750 gallons of concentrate. So we take a hydrant, got the concentrate in the tank with proportion, inside the pump. So we're pumping finished solution into the Siamese connection. Foam with the standpipe, foam with the sprinklers, cancel the order for the towel ladder, done.
Wow.
So, and then we changed our SOPs for the whole facility. Not every building had flammable liquids. We had research buildings, we had process buildings. We pull up on a building with flammable liquids, put a foam line to the connection, start pumping foam into that building.
Perfect.
Let the system do its job. So sometimes just getting out of the box, but everything we're talking about today with Chief Tracy and Tommy and myself, this all goes back to firefighter health and safety. This is about operating correctly. Everything we talked about so far, there's an underlying thing. If you guys didn't hear it, training. Training was the underlying thing. Practicing, training. This is all part of health and safety.
One of the things I really liked about what little I have read on your guys' high-rise work was the development of the nozzle for high-rise firefighting. I mean, what a great, simple idea that was.
It would be, John Norman was the captain of Rescue One, I guess, maybe 1996.
In the
Era.
90s, right? I
Yeah.
thought so, yeah.
And it would be that I would become the captain of 35 truck on the Upper West Side around the corner from Lincoln Center.
Excuse me, around the corner from John Jay College. I just
Oh,
never
that's
gave
true.
that.
Oh, I'll tell you what,
Used to park my car at that firehouse. I know exactly where it is.
Jimmy Boyle ran the cadet program from an office over at John Jay.
Yep.
God bless him and God bless his son. Because son come on a job and was assigned to 33 engine, had to rotate his first rotation. He came to 35 truck and spent the year with me. So that was meant to be. But in any event, in that district, there was 72 acres of undeveloped land, which was the old North Central rail yards.
The rail yards, yeah.
So Donald Trump started the construction on 2 high-rise buildings that were going up basically at the same time. It wasn't a competition. It was 2 contractors being supervised by a general contract. And that was my administrative district. And what the fire department does is we build relationships, we form relationships. And with the construction sites, it's a relationship of respect and understanding. And they allowed me to use one of their buildings for, let's say, standpipe flow research study, if you want to call it that. The building was up to 27 stories. It had a 19-story setback. And I wanted to show or prove to the department anyway, that 3 hand lines coming off the same riser, as you open up the second line, as you open up the third line, you're going to be stealing water from the first line. What's the significance of that? Well, if you're going to open up the second line, at least let the first line know if they're moving in aggressively on an attack that you're going to open up your line because you're stealing water and pressure from them.
Common courtesy.
There you go. So basically, you open up that second line, you lose 25% of pressure and flow, and then the same thing with the third hand line. The pump compensates for it, and we're back in business.
So the pump operator in the street has to be aware of when they're opening the lines too, right?
Well, there's a governor, and that could happen automatically, but absolutely, if you don't have that governor, the pump operator is going to have to compensate. But with the automatic governor, the pump does it by itself.
Oh, yeah.
So the next study or show and tell was that, Chief, we can put a master streaming operation off the standpipe on an upper floor when we're above the reach of tower ladders and things like that. So it was an Akron, New Yorker. Basically, it's an Akron, ground device that when we use them in the field as a safety, we put a safety line around it and secure it somewhere in case it.
So it doesn't
So,
fly.
yeah, so, or it doesn't
Back pressure,
start,
whatever.
exactly, backing up. And quite frankly,
You
and
set them up on an icy day, you go riding, right? You go sliding in
well,
the
it's
street.
possible, but the feet, they have
points.
carbide tips.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you
pound
tap
them into
them,
the pavement.
and since John Norman was invited to the party, and while we invited Rescue One, they shot a stud into the floor and we could tie onto that. Because I didn't have a substantial object up there.
Go figure.
So with that, they helped us. And quite frankly, long story short, we proved, and with 2 lines supplying the device and the outlets weren't open all the way. And we were below the 35 because there's a lock at 35. You got to lower it past that. And the reason you want to lower it below 35 is because there's drop ceilings. You may have to launch your water to the other side of the core on the floor of a high rise. We were flowing greater than 700 gallons of water a minute. We didn't have the outlets open all the way.
Wow.
But you brought up the high rise now. The third test was John Norman from the Intrepid Museum, which is right up the block from Rescue One.
Called the rowboat.
He acquired, if you will, 10-foot Navy nozzles.
Oh,
Now, the Navy nozzle looks like a hand grenade.
Yep.
right. I've seen it. Yep.
Under normal operations at 40 PSI, really, to the nozzle, 40 PSI, it might be more than 50 or more to the nozzle, but you're only going to get a 40-gallon minute flow based upon the holes. And as the water comes out, it impinges upon itself. And that's what they call it, a fog stream, but it's an impinging fog.
Okay.
Because it does that. Well, I wanted more water than that. So I took it home, 7/32 drill, every one of those holes. We were flowing 150 gallons of water a minute out of this nozzle. And from the floor below, you could stick it on the windowsill of the floor above.
Mhm.
And I want to show chiefs in a residential arena where the spandrel distance from window to window is 10 feet, I could use the Navy fog nozzle and introduce a water stream into the fire apartment when you can't make the fire flow.
When you can't make the floor because it's too hot.
So it wasn't a high-rise nozzle, but we were using the Navy fog. And
That's interesting.
John Norman, his firefighters from Rescue One, displaying this nozzle. So that was the first introduction of, let's say, the thought of a high-rise nozzle in 1996. But it wasn't until we got into the research with the NIST, if you will, that was 14 years later. To say, things don't happen overnight. Seriously, right? You're talking the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh,
and
yeah,
change,
of course.
And who are they gonna buy in? Who was, when the high-rise nozzle was introduced into the job, it was designed by New York City firefighter right away. Social media, you know, that same guy who said, clean cabs don't make grabs? Oh, did you see that coward nozzle?
Coward nozzle.
The
Yeah, I saw
coward
that.
nozzle.
I saw that.
You know that
coward nozzle.
firefighter who said that? You know what I say to that firefighter? You were never in that hallway on the fire floor. You were never there. You'd be praying for that coward
Yeah,
stick.
I bet.
The coward stick, that's
Yeah,
what they call
Yeah,
it.
the coward.
Yeah, the
I
coward
saw
stick.
that. I saw that.
Yeah.
But you know what? Listen, the world is full of, I call them keyboard cowards.
There you
The
go.
world's full of keyboard cowards, and that's okay. Let them do whatever they're gonna do.
Oh, geez.
But at the end of the day, everything we're talking about now, I think you heard what the chief said about getting that nozzle in from the floor below and just at least getting some water on it to knock it down, to get rid of some of the heat. And then you can make your way into the apartment from upstairs and say, all right, we got some of it knocked down, get in there and do your thing. So
I'll have to mention this. Of course, that nozzle isn't effective in every application, and I'll tell you what I mean. You could have balconies on every floor.
Okay.
The fire is venting out a sliding glass door out of a balcony. You can't position a high-rise nozzle to get water into the fire. department.
because of the balcony,
Exactly.
right?
But what you can do, you can go 3 floors above and lower a Bresnan distributor on a hose from above, and you can't believe how much water you'll put into that fire department. And that was given to us by the Ottawa Fire Services, Peter McBride, a chief in Ottawa.
No kidding.
As simple as that. That Bresnan sits there,
Just spins, right?
doesn't move. Just puts out a tremendous, so, and Bill Gusson has done that down in
So
Miami-Dade.
if you actually just hang it loose off of the end of a line
Exactly.
and it doesn't
It does
whip,
not- It sits right there.
it doesn't whip.
Right.
guess
It's a
because-
gyro.
No kidding. I never thought of that like that.
It's a
I gotta
gyro.
write some stuff down. You're never too old to learn, kids.
Wow. And I'm gonna have to escape.
Never too. Chief,
Uh,
thanks for stopping in.
Thank you very much for
Thank
this
you.
pleasure.
Yes,
Sure,
thank
it
you.
was a pleasure.
God
Thank you.
bless
Thanks for
you.
stopping in. We appreciate you, man.
Thanks for
Don't do
having
you
me.
think he's gonna go now? He's gonna put some more knowledge on some of these people here because they don't have enough knowledge.
Thank you.
Thanks for
God bless
stopping in, chief. All right, so, hold on, chief. I think you left something here. Oh, yeah, give him his, gotta get his badge. You can't do anything without a badge. We don't need no stinking badges, but we do need stinking badges. See, that's what I was just saying. Thanks, chief. Appreciate it.
The present distributor, in my humble opinion, is the forgotten tool of the fire
Yeah,
service.
you know, some guy did an article a couple of years ago on actually what he did was he said, I went into the attic at a firehouse and pulled out all the old stuff.
Mhm.
And he said, the president of the street, he says, it's the world's biggest sprinkler head.
Yeah.
He says, you could put it up in a cock loft, you can put it in hidden spaces. I never heard him dangling in it 3 floors below.
That,
And it's not, the first thing I thought of, it's going to kind of whip, but I guess it's coming out so even on all sides. It holds its own. Like you said, it's like a gyroscope. That's
Hmm.
pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Let me check with the producer. How much time we got left? Show me your hand. Okay, we could do that. We could do that, right? Let's talk about FDIC.
the opening ceremonies.
Oh,
were,
man,
uh,
they were killer. First of all, Bobby Halton was on fire for a change,
yeah.
right? Right. That was the producer that said that.
I might have to pull your 10 minutes.
So basically what my normal saying is, we're gonna go to FDIC. Wednesday morning's the opening show. Bobby's gonna scream at us for 45 minutes and then we're gonna have coffee. That's the usual drill, right? And then I lean over to Tommy and I say, he needs to go to decaf and he agrees with me. So we'll never get Bobby on decaf, but let me tell you, that's his job. His job is to fire up the fire service and get us moving at all times. And, like you said, and then Steve Chikarota's come out and hit a
Oh.
home run. Steve, if you haven't seen it,
That's the first time I've heard him speak, and it was definitely worth
absolutely worth the price of admission,
admission.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, Steve Chikarotis, retired deputy from Chicago. And so for those of you who don't know, Steve is the technical consultant for Chicago Fire and for the movie Backdraft from a long time ago. He worked with Ronnie Howard. So, and he's been writing, he started out writing his first couple of scripts for the show Emergency in the 70s. So he's been around the Hollywood scene for a long time, but he's the nicest guy you'll ever meet. And he's a fireman through and through. So Steve's, I've had some nice conversations with him. So if you get a chance and you didn't see the show this morning, if you're home or you're remote, you couldn't get here, you can go in, it'll be on the fire engineering website, take a look at the keynote speech that Steve Chikarotis did from Chicago. It was dynamite. And he made it personal. He said, if you want to have a good life and you want to have a good career, try a couple of these things because it worked for me. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. You know?
Father Carey was spot on this morning.
Man, Father Carey, I had a chat with him and Ron Sarnicki from the foundation afterwards in the green room. The green room went black. The green room went dark after we got done talking. But he's a hoot, decorated war veteran, you know, and all that stuff. So that's why we come here, right, Tom? And missing last year was horrible. For me, it was 2 years. 2019, I had some surgery. I couldn't get here, so I had a 2-year skip. But it is so good to be back because we've been talking for years about FDIC. This is our annual family reunion. My wife tells people, "Where's Ron?" She says, "Oh, he's in Indiana at his family reunion." So people say, "You didn't go with him?" She said, "I don't talk to that side of the family," is what she said. I don't talk to that side of the family. So this is a family reunion. And you know, we call it the brotherhood, and we see our brothers and sisters, and some people we only see here once a year.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen these people in 2 or 3 years. So as I'm really happy to see them, they're not necessarily happy to see me, but that's the way it goes. You know, I can live with that.
So Tammy was able to clear up the mystery we had yesterday of how long we've been doing the radio show.
Oh, you asked her?
Yeah,
Okay, I predicted 7 years.
10
years.
10 years.
So is this our 10?
June. In June.
This past June was 10 years?
Yeah, happy anniversary.
So we have an anniversary, yeah.
Happy anniversary.
Oh, yeah.
Happy anniversary.
There you go. Happy anniversary. We got to celebrate. You know what? Let's go out for lunch after this.
What a wonderful idea.
Tammy, you got to work or you want to come with us?
I gotta work.
All right, Tammy's got to work, guys. So sorry, but we owe you one. How's that?
The other thing that surprised
10
me,
years.
Tammy was able to pull up some of our earlier episodes, and some of them have 5,000 hits.
Yeah?
Yeah,
No.
people was actually listening.
They actually
to this.
listening to this? I'll tell you, I was at a conference in Missouri a couple of years ago, and right after my morning class, we broke for lunch, and there was a young lady, a firefighter, and she said, "Are you Ronnie K from the Backstep Boys?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, our whole shift listens to you guys all the time." I says, "This is great." I said, "I'm gonna call Tom and tell him I found the 5 people that listen to the show." So now I go in the cafeteria, I get my food, and then we're on the University of Missouri. It's this for Tracy Gray for his
Okay.
conference, and I come out of the chute, and I hear Ron, and it's her. She goes like this. She's sitting with 3 or 4 guys she works with. She goes, "This is Ronnie K." I had 5 minutes. You know, so you get 15 minutes of fame. That was my 15 minutes. Done. Imagine that. But yeah, with 10 years, and I will tell you, we enjoy doing this, and I know we know all the other radio hosts that are on. You know, there's 20 shows a month. It's Monday to Friday, every 4 weeks a month, and everybody enjoys doing it because it's about, you know, Billy Goldfeder. Unfortunately, my good friend Billy, he coined the phrase "pass it on." You
Yeah.
know, and I'm just kidding because Billy's a good guy and a trusted soul here. This is his first FDIC he hasn't been at in 40 years.
Wow.
He made a commitment to be somewhere, and then Clarion changed the dates. And you know, and you know what? At the end of the day, that's cool for me. You make a commitment, you got to keep your
Is that
commitments.
the Jersey Shore, right?
No, he's not at the down to Jersey Shore. Come on, Tammy.
No,
He's-
that's Peter is at the
Yeah.
Jersey Shore,
He-
hopefully enjoying himself.
But he had another commitment to be speaking in another place or two that, you know, again, we all thought we'd be here in April. So I think the mayor or the governor this morning said, "Welcome to summer school." You know, I thought that was kind of funny, but here we are in summer school. And right away, it's a beautiful week in Indiana. Sun's out, it's 80 degrees. They don't get a lot of humidity here because we're not near the water, you know, they're landlocked. So that's that. But yeah, so it's good to be back and see everybody. And
Yeah, I think once the show floor opens up, there'll be a little more traffic and.
Yeah, tomorrow.
yeah.
I think the show opens up tomorrow. Yep.
But I stopped in and had the opportunity to sit in on Steve, and I know I'm gonna pronounce his last
Chris
name.
Borowski.
No, survivability profile.
Oh,
guy.
Marsar.
Marsar.
Steve
thanks.
Marsar. Yep.
And he's a great speaker.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen him live, but I've heard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, he did a good job. And every time I'm out teaching the National Fire Academy's Incident Safety Officer class, I bring up his EFO
So do
paper.
I, do the same thing.
And you may agree with it, you may not, but it's definitely eye-opening
It's
research.
hard to disagree with what he says.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, Stephen Mossar is a battalion chief in New York City, but when he was a captain, he went through the executive fire officer program at the National Fire Academy, and he won a research award for his dissertation paper at the end of the 4-year program. And he called it survivability profiling. So his statement leading to the paper on page 1 tells the whole story. I've been in the fire department for 25 years. 32 of my fellow firefighters have gotten killed in empty buildings. What the heck are we doing? So the buildings are empty because they were either vacant buildings, the people weren't home, they already escaped the fire, the smoke alarms went off, everybody got out and all that stuff. 32 fire, and there were no civilian fatalities in any of those buildings. 32 firemen got killed in empty buildings. We have to reassess what the hell we're doing here. I don't know how anybody can argue with that. And all it is, he says, you need, I mean, you should read the paper. It's a white paper. There's no pictures, no drawings. Sorry, folks, but it's a quick read, but it makes a lot of sense. And it brings us back to Tommy and I's core mission on sitting here up on the backstep today of safety and health. It's a safety thing. He just, all Mossar's saying is, look at the building and can anybody still be alive in there? And you know, even John Norman, he was on our first edition of the Everyone Goes Home videotapes.
Mhm.
We did the Everyone Goes Home program through the National Fallen Firefighters. And Norman said on the first tape, because we did 4 iterations, he said, it's not that there's just people in a burning building when we risk our lives. He says, it's people in a burning building who can still be saved
Yeah,
when we'll risk our lives. And that's kind of, Mossar kind of took that out of cyber somewhere and must have heard it in his sleep and said, wait a minute, what are we doing? Like, you know, and so to me, I always paint this picture in my classes. I say, you pull up to it. I say, oh, everybody picture this. Close your eyes. You're pulling up to a 2.5-story frame house. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. There's 2 cars in the driveway. There are bicycles on the porch. It tells you people are home.
Yeah.
You got cars, you got toys. Okay. There's fire coming out of every window in the house. Can those people still possibly be alive? Okay. If they made it maybe down to the basement and they're under the fire, perhaps. Okay, so you have to make that decision. You can't pop the door and go in anyway. Your turnout gear is not built to go through the current fire loads of 14, 15, 1600 degrees. You're going to get burned up. You can't do it. So you have to make that decision. Say, wait, you know, nobody could, you know, I'm not going to make it through there with turnout gear. How are people going to make it in their pajamas? You know,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So that's kind of what he was talking about. But he's a smart dude. Mossar's a smart dude. And I told him, I saw him here when I got here Sunday. And I said, I was talking to some folks in the ready room downstairs with the instructors, and he walked in. And I said, I got to tell you, Steve, I said, you coined that survivability profile and you put that thought in our heads. And I said, I preached that, you know, in other things. I said, but you made your mark, you know, and he really made his mark on the fire service. Look up survivability profiling or Stephen Mossar, Stephen with a PH, Marsar. Read the paper. It'll take you 15, 20 minutes. You'll be glad you did. How are we doing for time, boss?
Anytime now.
Anytime now, okay.
how'd your class go?
On Monday?
Yeah.
Good. I did my safety leadership from the back room to the fire room. You got to have a catchy phrase or they don't come to your class. You ever look at the titles of the classes there at FDIC? It's all kinds of stuff. So good. I had about 20 firefighters in the class, and it was good. I've got a little back and forth. I added something this year. I met a NASA astronaut, Colonel Mike Mullane from New Mexico.
Mhm.
He's from Albuquerque. I met him in 1999. We became friends. We've been friends ever since. And he does a whole thing on the normalization of deviance.
Yes,
Is when
I've
you,
seen that TED Talk.
yep. So when you deviate from your routine, when you deviate from safety, because it comes from NASA, normalization of deviance comes from NASA. When you keep getting away from the safety and like, let me put it in firefighter terms. You're walking across that roof every single time there's a fire and you're not putting a ladder on it. You're just walking on the roof. Okay. And you get away with it 1,000 times, like the captain in Fresno, California a few years ago, but only he fell in on the 1,001th time. He fell in and barely came out. Okay. And passed later on. So it's that deviating from your normal routine or your safety routine becomes the norm. That's what happened at NASA. That's what a challenge, not Nassau, that's Long Island. NASA. That's why the Challenger blew up in 1980, in 87, 87, 86. I forget the date. I think 87.
7.
The Challenger blew up and killed those astronauts because of the normalization of deviance at NASA. So I put his video up. He sent me a video. He's in the National Speakers Bureau. He gets, I don't know, $3 million for a speech or something, whatever it is. But I played that piece when he talks about the normalization of deviance and what the lessons learned from NASA was. Pretty cool. And then as a PhD, I think out of Cornell or Columbia, she wrote a book called The NASA Launch Decision. And she gets deep into that. That's a whole book on that subject. Yeah, her last name is Vaughn. Very, very good book. So with that, Tommy, we're getting the signal from the producer. And if we don't stop producing, she's going to kill us. So Tommy and I were so happy to be back at FDIC, happy to be on the radio with you, happy to be on the Backstep. Tom,
Stay safe.
stay safe, wear your gear, wear your seatbelt, slow down, eat right, eat light, use your head, stop for red. We'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.